Well, hi everyone, welcome back to another service, another evening church service. We're excited that you are gathering with us for our next chapter in our gospel series, looking at the fullness of God's story. This last Saturday that's just passed yesterday, we had Anzac Day, and obviously due to circumstances at the moment, we haven't been able to celebrate that in a way that we may normally do. And I just want to encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to commemorate that, we have a service that we streamed this morning, which you can find on our morning service page on this website. And maybe find an hour or so and just take some moments to commemorate those who have kept our nation safe, and remember and be thankful for the things that generations before us have done for our safety in our nation. And I think that'd just be a great idea. As we kick off tonight, I want to let you know that I love TV. I love watching TV shows. I'm a massive binge TV person, right? I love Netflix, I love Stan, I love all those types of things. And most recently, Jade and I have done a bit of a throwback, and we've been watching Mad Men. Now, Mad Men is a show that has 7 series, and we got through it in a matter of weeks, which I don't know if that's a flex or if that's something I should be embarrassed about. But something I realized when watching Mad Men is that at different points in the story, at different times during different seasons, you found the story got a little bit stale. Things didn't move and didn't change, and you weren't on the edge of your seat as much. And often what you found was that when you're in a moment like that, a new character would be injected into the storyline. Someone new and fresh and different would come in to the narrative and change the dynamic, change the way the story was heading. When things were boring and not shifting and stale, someone new would come in and be able to change where that storyline was going. And tonight, we're going to be looking at a moment in our gospel story where this type of thing happens. Right? So far we've seen that God created the world, and He loved humanity so much that He put them in a place of leadership, but we stepped out of that. And we've continually been spiraling out of control and been disobedient to God. And a holy God can't live amongst an unholy people. And we've seen this tension of humanity falling and people being called into being a savior figure or a Christ figure, but then stumbling again. And even though God has promised that He's going to be with His people, He's going to bless His people, He's going to favor His people, these people keep stuffing up. They keep rejecting and ignoring God, and in turn losing His presence. And throughout the whole Old Testament, we see this narrative developing, and we're probably getting at a point now where we see this storyline being trot out again and again to a point where it's quite stale. In fact, we see that through the prophets and the judges and all these moments and all these different types of books. And then we have 400 years of silence. Now that seems like a pretty boring or tragic storyline to pick up. But that's where we are, right? But we see a new character coming into this storyline that is absolutely going to change the dynamics of where this narrative is going. And we're going to be looking at the Gospel of John, the first 19 verses of John 1. And I want to read that out to you now and explore this character, explore who this person is and how they change the game. So let me read John 1:1-18. In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through Him, and nothing was created except through Him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and His life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He came into the very world He created, but the world didn't recognize Him. He came to His own people, and even they rejected Him. But to all who believed Him and accepted Him, He gave the right to become children of God. They are reborn, not with a physical birth resulting from human passion or plan, but a birth that comes from God. So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness. And we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. John testified about him when he shouted to the crowds, "This is the one I was talking about when I said, 'Someone is coming after me who is far greater than I am, for he existed long before me.' From his abundance we have all received one gracious blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses, but God's unfailing love and faithfulness came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but the unique one, who himself is God, is near to the Father's heart. He has revealed God to us." So what we see here in the Gospel of John is John actually writing essentially the gospel message, what we've looked at so far, but in short form. You see, in the beginning was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John's talking about the creation story and saying that Jesus was actually there. That nothing in this world came to being except through Jesus creating it. Jesus is responsible for the creation that we've looked at all those weeks ago. Things being in chaos and unordered and nothingness and wild and waste becoming ordered and perfect and rhythmic and being fruitful. Jesus is responsible for that. But as we continue on, the light was rejected by man, right? We fall out of our place in our rhythm. Like we were looking at in week 2, we have sin in our lives. We reject the light. Even though the light exposes our weaknesses, we still reject it. But we see here that Jesus is coming again to fix the problem. That tension that we were talking about, Jesus is coming in. He's going to put on the flesh that he created and make his dwelling among his creation, which is such an exciting idea, right? That the very God who created this world is actually going to step into it and change the game, change the narrative, break this tension that we've been talking about, this stale narrative, this storyline that just hasn't changed in so long. We're going to see God step into that and change it. And this is the idea that John is trying to capture, that Jesus stepping in to this story is going to change everything. He is the character that shifts the storyline. And I just want to look at 3 things that Jesus is shifting just by entering in. We haven't even looked at his message yet. We haven't even looked at what he's going to do or his mission, but just by him stepping into this story, I want to show you 3 things that are automatically redefined by God stepping in. And the first one is this, that Jesus stepping into the story reimagines and redefines our image of God. It reimagines everything we know about God. We have a new angle and a new picture of God. Up until now, we've been in this tension of not really being able to see or know God because we're unholy people and we keep choosing unholiness. And like I said earlier, a holy God cannot be in the presence of unholy people. And if you've read the Old Testament, which I'm sure you have, you know there are a bunch of ceremonial things that you have to do even to get close to being able to be in the presence of God. If you look at the story of the Ark of the Covenant, if you touch that and you're unholy, you die, right? You cannot have unholy people in the presence of a holy God. But what we see in Jesus is that a holy God is putting on flesh and dwelling amongst his people. This is radically different to the image we've seen of God before. This is radically different to the holiness that isn't compromised in Jesus, but suddenly is able to be amongst sinfulness, which is complete. This changes the storyline, right? Colossians tells us, Colossians 1:5, it says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. And what does that mean? Well, when we look at Jesus, we are seeing what God is. We are seeing who God is, what his character is like, how he feels, what he gets upset about, what he enjoys, what he thinks is right, what he thinks is wrong. When you look at the story of Jesus, you are getting a glimpse into the heart of a God you weren't able to see before. And this is amazing, the fact that we have this holy God who is distant from us because of our sinfulness, suddenly we can recognize him and see him for who he is. Everything that Jesus stood for, God the Father stands for. Everything that upsets Jesus upsets God the Father in heaven. Right? We have a new image of our Heavenly Father, and we see that through the eyes of seeing Jesus the Son. Right? He is God in flesh, incarnate, Emmanuel, God with us. Jesus redefines the image we have of God. Not only that, Jesus redefines how we see humanity. Jesus gives us a new sense of humanity. Now, what we know about humanity is this, that we like to categorize things. We like to put things into boxes and order them and make sure that they stay in their boxes. And what we see in this gospel, or the story of Jesus, is that time and time again, he redefines or cannot be categorized, redefines what these categories are. And one of those is humanity. You see, up until this point in time, humanity has been categorized as sinful. Right? Time and time again, we have proved that we are sinful people. But Jesus is fully human. He's fully God, but he's also fully human. But he's perfect. He is sinless. He was tempted, but he is sinless. Jesus redefines what it means to be human and what it's going to look like for us to be human on the other side of perfection. Jesus is redefining what it means and what it looks like for us as humanity to enter into this world and rule and live within it. Jesus redefines what humanity looks like. You know, I think back to that moment where Jesus was on the boat and he calms the storm. And if there's one thing I know about humans, is that we can't control the weather. We don't even know how to predict it from hour to hour, let alone control whether it is. But Jesus is fully human and is able to control the weather. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to be able to control the weather when we are on the other side of perfection, but what I am saying is that we need to take note of this, that Jesus is more than just a man. He is very much one of us, but he's actually redefining what it means to be human. This is a new way to be human. If we look at Jesus, there are moments in which we won't be able to replicate that as much as we want to. And as much as he is human, there are things that we look forward to be like him on the other side of heaven. And finally, I want to look at this. Jesus redefines the relationship between God and humanity. Jesus redefines that. You know, up until this point, God has lived either in heaven, away from humanity, or in a temple or a holy space, right? And you have had to enter with very much seriousness and a sense of fearfulness because you might be smited right there, right? But I love this story about Jesus and Mary and Martha. And I think this proves to us how Jesus is redefining the relationship. You see, one sister, she's obsessed with doing or bringing or offering or bringing something to the table before Jesus. And that reflects very much how our relationship with God has been so far. We have to bring our first fruits. We have to bring something. We have to bring a sacrifice or an offering. We have to make sure we're doing the right things. But then we see that the preferable option here is just to be at the feet of Jesus. You see, Mary chose what was better. Martha was cleaning, she was bringing things to the table in order to try and get access with Jesus, but Mary's just at his feet. Mary was just in his presence, wasn't looking to bring anything to the table, was just in the presence of God, just wanted relationship with God. And that's what Jesus does. He bridges, he redefines what our relationship with God looks like. Right? What used to be doing and bringing and offering and sacrificing and doing all these things in order to try and gain access to God, we just have to be in his presence. That is the better option. That is the new way we relate to God, just to be with him. And I just want to finish off by encouraging you tonight. I just want to encourage you in this, that Jesus hasn't even revealed his mission yet. We know what he's here for, but at this point in the story, all we know is that God has come into his world that he's created, and already things are changing. And this week, I just want to encourage you of three things. I just want to encourage you to remember Jesus. You know, it's so easy for us to live our lives and look into, even when we're doing godly things, to look into the deep depths of theology or social justice or worship. But I just want to encourage you this week, just remember and be thankful for the person of Jesus. You know, often for me, I can forget to do this. I can get caught up in life or doing an assignment or writing a sermon or preparing something for youth, and I forget just to remember and be thankful for the person that Jesus is. And I also want to encourage you to spend some time in the gospel. Knowing what we have looked at tonight, that this is God in flesh. Jesus represents, Jesus is God in person. He's Emmanuel with us. Look at Jesus' story. Look at one of the Gospels and see what God is communicating to you through that. And finally, I just want to encourage you to live out a gospel perspective. Knowing that this is the reality that we're living in, knowing that this is the storyline and how it's shifted, I want to encourage you to live out of that truth. Don't live in the tension of not feeling able to access God or knowing that he's somewhere far off in heaven. Live out of a gospel reality, that God is with us, that he's for us, that he has come into this world to change that storyline. And so we need to live in light of that truth. And I just want to finish off by praying for us. I hope that tonight has blessed you. And I'm excited for next week as we explore the mission and the purpose of Jesus being here. And let me just finish by praying, and then we can head into the week. So Lord, thank you that you are with us. Jesus, we just want to glorify your name. We want to ask that, yes, you make yourself known to us more and more as we look into these scriptures. Jesus, we know that you are the physical representation of the invisible God. And we want to esteem you and worship you in that. You are God with us. And Jesus, I just want to say a big thank you for what you've done for us, the life that you lived that we couldn't. Thank you that you have freely given that up and charged that to us, given that to us as a free gift. Your perfection before your Father, your sinless, perfect life, you have given that to us, Lord. So thank you for that. Help us this week to live in that truth, that you are God and you are with us, that you are close to us, that you're invested in us, Lord, that you're not far away, but you're right here beside us. Help us live that out this week. And it's in your powerful name, Jesus, that we pray. Amen.